Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. Yes, there's been a resurgence of criminality in Nigeria between January and April 2025, including incidents of terrorism, banditry and kidnapping. Terrorist groups like Boko Haram and ISWAP have continued their attacks, leading to civilian casualties and displacement. Additionally, banditry in the northwest and north-central regions has escalated, with criminal gangs unleashing mayhem and seizing farms. Kidnappings, including those targeting religious figures, have also constituted serious threats, with women and children always at the receiving end. Now, tackling the resurgence of criminality in Nigeria requires a multifaceted approach, focusing on strengthening law enforcement, addressing socioeconomic factors, enhancing community policing, and promoting national reorientation. Now, this also includes improved judicial systems, improving border security, and fostering international cooperation. Tonight, NTA Tuesday Live will engage top brass and leading voices of the women folk in the nation's security sector to share their professional opinions on burning national issues affecting security. And it's the topic, Resurgence of Criminality and Vulnerability of Women. But first, let's see this report put together by defense correspondent Ismail Musa.
Fulani communities evolved into a radicalized faction in northwest Nigeria, Sokoto and Kebbi states.
Troops are confronted with Lakurawa affiliated to terrorists from the Sahel. We are going to put those terrorists at bay, and we are going to find and flush out those ones that have come in.
In 2018, community leaders in Ilela and Gudu in Sokoto state allegedly invited the group, whose origin has been traced to Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso, to assist in the fight against banditry, but later turned rebels.
They were meant to provide security against the bandits. Now, we usually say today's solution could be tomorrow's problem. Now, after providing security to some of these communities, they are now putting taxes on some of these communities and becoming a menace to us.
So far, Lakurawa imposed tax on farmers, displaced communities, killed many people, and looted properties. To combat this threat, the Minister of Defense, Mohammed Bello, and the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, were on appraisal visit to the troubled areas to review ongoing operations, enhance joint security operations with emphasis on technology to monitor and gather intelligence.
We have overviewed the entire operation and realized that we need to harmonize our operations together. If you notice, we have Operation Hadarin Daji and Operation White Stroke, both within the northwest region. We have seen the need for us to harmonize those operations into one operation like we did in the northeast, where we have Operation Hadinkai. The same thing is being done now for the northwest operation. We have one unified operation. It's going to be called Operation Fansan Yama. Fansan Yama, for those of us that know, it's securing the west. Now, the intention is to ensure that we synergize all our efforts in addressing the security challenges in the northwest. It's been their tradition for the bandits to be able to flow between the states within them. So now what we're doing is that since we're harmonizing the whole operation, they will come under one commander. And then the commander will be able to utilize all the equipment and troops together to ensure that we address this critically. And I think that's the best solution we have for it. And I can assure you, all the assets that is required to do that will be done.
Regional military efforts strengthening partnership with Cameroon, Niger, Chad and Mali to develop a unified response to the insurgent threats across borders.
We are implementing heightened security protocols in high-risk areas and advanced technology to monitor, gather, and analyze intelligence. Increased joint operations between the military and other security forces. We have also maintained close ties with our allies to ensure that we stay ahead of those who seek to harm us.
While the Lakurawa threat is being subdued, there have been recent resurgence of terrorist activities in parts of Borno State in northeast Nigeria. Similarly, parts of Plateau in the north central were attacked by terrorists.
That report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let me introduce our guest tonight. I'd like to welcome to this program Air Vice Marshal Precious Nnamdi Amadi is Director of Operations at Defense Headquarters. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Right. We're also joined by Arms Free Ajanaku, who's a civil society activist. Good to see you.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
All right. Let me welcome to this program, after a very long time, Ramatu Musa Al-Hatu, a women advocate and a former president of the National Council of Women's Societies. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much.
It's good to see you again.
Thank you.
All right. We're joined also tonight by Dr. Kabir Adamu, law and security expert. Nice having you on this program tonight.
Delighted to be back here.
Right, good. And joining us via Zoom from Jos is retired General Jonathan Temlong, who was, yes, well, I think General Temlong is right there at this point in time, yes? Okay. Well, hopefully he'll join us. Okay. And also tonight, okay.
Very much for having me.
Good,
How
thanks.
are you doing?
Thanks for joining us, right. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, also tonight, we have linking us from the United States via Zoom, Professor Joy Ezilo, a senior advocate of Nigeria and life bencher. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
All right, it's good to see you, Prof. Right, okay. Okay, so the issues are clear tonight. A resurgence of criminality and the vulnerability of women and also children by extension. Now, a lot has been put into stemming the insecurity in Nigeria. And there are those, many citizens would say, after all these deployment of resources, both human and material, that would be seen, you know, the barest minimum of this. But it would seem that of recent, the bandits, terrorists, criminals have stepped up their activities and they're unleashing mayhem on Nigerian societies. What's going on here? Let's start with you, AVM Precious Amadi.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to reaffirm the commitment and dedication of armed forces of Nigeria to the safety and security of Nigeria's territorial integrity and to make sure that no Nigerian is killed or harmed unjustly and not allowed to carry out his personal business and economic activities safely. So we are committed to that effect and will continue to do that at all times. Now, back to your question and to the post that you raised. Yes, in recent last 2-3 months, we've had some spikes in attacks, yes. However, we are dealing with it in the way we know best to deal with it. We are fully equipped, committed, and dedicated, and then to ensuring that we deal with these issues as they arise. The Nigerian Armed Forces, working in synergy with other security agencies, are fully committed to handling the issues as they arise. And with the support of the Nigerian government and Nigerian people, I can tell you that in no time, this will be, Nigeria will be safer and much better place to live in.
AVM, it's worrisome, isn't it, when the governor of Borno State, for instance, raises an alarm that these terrorists are even overrunning security posts?
Well, not to take anything from what His Excellency, the governor of Borno State, has said and his comments, which we acknowledge and respect the Excellency for what he said. And we acknowledge also that we have some attacks recently has affected troops, and we are really, really working round the clock to ensure that these attacks stop and we are able to go on the offensive again. If you have watched the trend of banditry or insurgency, especially in the Northeast, you will observe that during the dry season, there is usually heightened attacks. But this time, we are trying to ensure that we strangulate their logistics supply lines, because that is the only way they're able to gather resources to attack or to affect our people. You see, most of the attacks against locations are mostly not isolated locations, but locations that are far from where they can be reinforced quickly. So with that, we are also working on new strategies and new ways to ensure that we're able to reinforce those places and then secure the communities around. And we're working on that, and I can assure you that we're doing our best.
All right. We'll return to you to see just how much of this is yielding results. But let's come to Amsfria Janaku. Well, the society seems powerless in the face of all this that's happening. It's mayhem from one place to the other. If it's not, a communal clash in one part, it's the so-called bandits in some other areas. And then you have the issue of kidnappings for ransom, and sometimes all are interwoven. You find that even the terrorists too kidnap for ransom or for food sometimes. And the society is seemingly powerless here.
Absolutely. We're in a state of anomy, and if we are to come to terms with the scale of what we are facing, especially from a citizen's point of view, would come to the realization that life currently in Nigeria within the context of security is brutish, it is nasty, it is quite short. And we see that also playing out in dimensions which you see a lot of vulnerable people being affected. In the past, people could go to their farms, they could go about their businesses, travel on the roads without fear of that whole reality of will I arrive my destination. But the reality today in Nigeria is that everybody has their heart in their mouths, even for a short 1 hour or 2 hour trip, because of the scale of this problem. Fundamentally, I believe, and those of us in civil society believe, that we require a whole of government and whole of society approach to tackling this problem. Because this is not something where we're going to say, okay, it's just the responsibility of the government. And one of the things that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu talked about, when he was running for the presidency, was that he was, going to deploy processes that would help win hearts and minds. And then he also talked about innovations, within the security architecture. He talked about even the doctrine within the military circle. So there are a lot of issues that came up which we believe should be fast-tracked. And we've had a situation in this country where even some top brass of the security architecture have come out to say that the current security architecture is incapable of stemming the tide of attacks we are seeing, where whole communities are attacked, women are raped, lives are decimated, properties. It is just the sheer scale of it that, makes you shudder that, it was never this bad in the context of Nigeria. And we need to do something drastic. And so if several of the figures in the top brass of our security architecture have said the current architecture is not working, and then it means that we really need to rethink and redesign that architecture to meet up with the challenges of the time.
All right. Well, Ramatu,
yes,
we've talked about vulnerable groups, and women are here vulnerable. These acts are carried out. Most times you find it's women who bear the brunt of it. Yes, the men may be kidnapped, but the women are brutalized, raped on so many occasions, and in fact, they carry the full weight of this insurgency. And sometimes the terrorists even force them to deploy them to do their dirty job for them. What do you say to all of this?
Yeah, I must appreciate you for bringing up this very important topic at this material time. And I look at it as very timely. Timely in the sense that the word resurgence shows that we have been living with this situation, all these issues happening, and that we did not act proactively. No concluded results in any happening anywhere. So, and because of that, the resurgence have come back with full force, and it's very overwhelming. Now the situation is, in such conditions, women and children are always at the receiving end. We have a lot of widows, and some widows, husbands are eliminated when they are not working. Some are not educated, even with the education. You know, there are a lot of problems of lack of employment. You understand? When the woman is heartbroken, as it has always been said, that when you educate a woman, you educate the nation. And the life has proved to us that women are the best managers of both human and material resources. Now that we are being crippled to this extent, we become vulnerable. And to be candid, in some of these peacekeeping situations, women should be involved. Because all these guys that are, people that are involved in these criminal activities have mothers, they have aunties, they have daughters. I'm telling you, during late President Yar'Adua's tenure, when he was alive, when we took mouth into the matter, the youth from the Niger Delta, I don't call them militants, they aggrieved people from the Niger Delta. They were able, their hearts became soft. I've never crossed the sea before, but we were on the sea. They were in their own, what do you call it? It's a more than boat, and we were in our own. I almost fainted that day. But believe you me, they had a soft heart. And they promised they will lay down their arms. But the situation is, when these things happened, and our former president died, I don't understand. Things continued. During President Jonathan's time, there was this proactiveness in addressing these issues. But do we have a follow-up? Do we monitor what is happening? What is the result we have gotten that has satisfied any group of people or Nigerians generally? And the situation is worrisome more that we've never seen a situation where our uniformed people are being attacked like this. So we are confused, I'm telling you. If women are not protected in this country, I don't know how you, we can have meaningful development. We are not happy at all. Our hearts are bleeding.
Dr. Kabir, this, it does not just defy a solution. It seems that it even defies analysis. How would you explain this? At some point in time, it was thought that we had recorded so much gains against the terrorists and things were beginning to be brought under control. And then suddenly, it was as if the criminals, the terrorists, they dipped into a reserve they had kept somewhere, and they're all out again.
And yeah, they are out. And as usual, I like using data to paint the picture of where we are. Even though I don't agree with my co-discussant that we're in a state of anomie. I drove from my house here without any protection. I know there are parts of Nigeria where the circumstance is really bad, but I don't think we're in a state of anomie. It is, like I said, I'll use data to paint the picture. The company I had, we produce data, and our March report showed that 1,300 people died in Nigeria in the month of March. The report also showed, when we calculated the 3 months that make up the first quarter of 2025, that 3,400 thereabout persons died within the country for that period. For abduction, the report showed that about 800 plus persons were abducted in the month of March, and about 2,400 were abducted from January to March 31st, 2025. Now, it is worrisome because those numbers they're huge numbers. But then when we compared it to fourth quarter 2024, the variance was negligible, the percentage variance. It wasn't that much. I'm trying to paint a picture. Yes, we're worried. Yes, we're seeing attacks that make us uncomfortable, but the changes are not so significant when you use data. Part of the reason why we're feeling this uncomfortable, I think, is because of the political statements that have followed the most recent attacks. In the last few weeks, 3 governors came out publicly to speak about this level of insecurity that has been described as resurgence. The governor of Borno State, that of Benue State, and then that of, I think, Plateau State, who now said a significant portion of the territory of that state had been taken over by non-state actors. So when we looked closely, incidentally, 2 of those governors are from the ruling party, that of Benue and then that of Borno State. So clearly, there's a political element to what is happening. The fact that they've spoken out, I think, has reverberated among the populace. And so you are seeing a lot. Of course, the media picked it up, and so we're where we are. Now, why are we seeing this quote-unquote resurgence? When we looked deeper, we were able to isolate a couple of reasons, and I'll quickly mention them. The oxygen that allows non-state actors to act more or less 3. Number 1, their ability to generate funding. As a country, the instruments that we have for addressing insurgency have not been implemented to the point where we've denied them the ability to generate funding. It is on record, in Borno State as an example, and I say this with all sense of responsibility, they're still able to collect levies, different categories of levies. Perhaps in the course of the program we can discuss that further. The same thing in the Northwest. They're able to collect that. Second point is their ability to recruit. These groups are still able to recruit using different means, sometimes incentivization, other times force. They coerce people into joining their groups, and then other times they use radical means, preach to them, and then try to conscript them using ideological conscription. And then, of course, the third one, which is even the more worrisome one, is their ability to acquire weapons as well as the ammunition that they use. So as a country, the 3 instruments that we have for addressing counterterrorism, which is the National Counterterrorism Strategy, the Policy Framework on Countering Violent Extremism, and then the Terrorism Prohibition and Prevention Law. Those 3 instruments, we've not fully implemented them to deny the groups this oxygen. So over time, when we suppress them, they are able to now, of course, if something is breeding, then the possibility of that thing regrowing or gaining strength happens. And so exactly that happens. There are some other, secondary factors which I'll quickly mention. For the Northeast, the parent group, of course, we know the terrorist groups, they are affiliated with international groups, Islamic State or Al-Qaeda. Now, we saw that parent group releasing statements which were monitored on the online magazine, Al-Naba, that the group publishes. They issued statements calling on their affiliates around the world to act And so we saw their affiliates in Nigeria also acting in that capacity. The other thing that we also saw within the period is the adoption of technology. Within that period, we saw unmanned aerial vehicles with IEDs, contrapment on them, and they were able to use them in complex attacks. We recorded 6 of such incidents targeting military formations in Borno alone. In Borno alone, in the month of March, we recorded 66 incidents, and 6 of those were of complex attacks. So clearly, something was happening, and it was a response to this directive from the parent organization. Now, in the Northwest, it was more around banditry, and perhaps the space was opening up. The rains had ended, and the groups now realized that they have more space. So perhaps that was part of the reason. Again, there could be other reasons. So this was kind of, we can go around the country and discuss each region, but this was kind of what we were able to see clearly. But I think it's important to make the point that in terms of numbers, the variances are not that much.
Yes, but there's something which I might say is scary here, and that's the use of technology, which you said.
Yeah.
Within this period, they were able to deploy unmanned aerial vehicles to carry out attacks.
I must say that the technology at this stage is crude.
Yes,
but it is worrisome. I agree. It's something we need to pay close attention to, because what we've seen in the Sahel, Greater Sahel, is that some of the groups have mastered that technology, and clearly there is an attempt to transfer that technology. And so this is the time for us to take steps to identify the sources of the materials that they are using in making that contraption, both for the IEDs and then, of course, access to the unmanned aerial vehicles. And more importantly, our anti-drone capabilities. We shouldn't wait until they perfect the technology. In previous times, previous administration, there used to be a committee that was monitoring movement of materials that could have incendiary purposes. And I don't know if that committee still exists. If it doesn't, then we need to reinstitute that committee. But yeah, it is disturbing. But I must say it's a crude technology. They haven't perfected it well. They are using the drones for 3 purposes. These crude attacks, and they are also using it for surveillance purposes, and they are also using it for communication purposes. Once it's up there, of course, it can see troop movement. And then once they are able to, they can communicate among themselves. So it is worrisome, definitely, and it's something we need to, like yesterday, act again. And I'm sure the military high command is aware of this, and it's taking action to prevent that. But in conclusion, just like I think one of the discussants mentioned, we should see counterterrorism not as a military thing. The military, out of the MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies we have, the military is just 4 out of 29. And if you pick those 3 instruments that I talked about, the roles of each and every one is identified. So I think that's what we need to look at. Why are we laying too much emphasis on the role of the military? Those 3 oxygen types that I talked about, it is not the military that would carry out those functions. There are agencies that have responsibility for border management, as an example, agencies that address the radicalization that I spoke about, the ability to acquire weaponry. There are agencies that address that. So I think that part of the challenges I've seen that have allowed the resurgence is the overwhelming emphasis that we have on the kinetic component by the military.
Okay, thanks so much, Kabir. We'll return to you. But let's go over to General Temlong, who is with us from Jos via Zoom. General, well, you've listened so far, and by the way, you are even in Plateau as well, and you can see what communal clashes are doing to that society, and it's once again the Plateau is in the news for these killings. But it's not even restricted to Plateau alone. As you heard, there have been such killings in Benue as well. And you do find that people are wondering, yes, perhaps we've not been able to, cut off the oxygen to these terrorists and criminals. But again, some Nigerians see it as if in an uncanny way, they're emboldened. And that's what's worrying about it all.
Well, thank you very much, Cyril. It looks it's not quite clear, but I think I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
What's happening on the plateau and Benue are quite worrisome, and I'm sure you have been aware of the fact that we woke up to very terrifying news since last week to this week, where people who have been killed and maimed and displaced in Boko's local government, and just recently, day before yesterday and even yesterday, even today, corpses were still being recovered in Basa local government. It's quite painful to see such things happening during this period. Unfortunately, like other discussers have said, we over-rely on the kinetic components of tackling this menace. I've said it over and I will say it again, Cyril, is that when we say that is an all-of-society approach, what role do the society play in all these things? Are they aware of what they are supposed to do? Have we built their capacity on what to do? Government at the subnational level and the local level, they understand what it means to say they are the chief security officers and what they are supposed to do to augment what, or to bring out the soft power components or the non-kinetic components to augment the kinetic components. What are the local governments doing and what are the citizens doing in all these things? It appears that we are very loose communities who have been left without being able to fend for themselves or even knowing what to do. And that's what I've been advocating all this while. We must include community resilience into whatever we are doing, because that is the basis for which communities can survive. And it's the building block to the non-kinetic process of tackling either terrorism or banditry or whatever it may be. So how can the citizens react? In marginal communities, if you look at where they attacked in Bokos or in Basa, those are remote areas, marginal areas. The terrain, the roads are not good, and communications are difficult in some of those areas. How do the citizens report anything that they see to those who act? Any channel of communication, how do you do it? You must train them and build them up. So you see, citizens are left open, and these people understand and know, and there are indicators. These attacks do not come without indicators. There are early warnings that come in. And those early warnings, if they were picked up and reported early enough by the citizens, they should be able to put the security agencies or the operatives in a good state to respond as quickly as possible. Now, coupled with that, are we actually properly equipped in some of this terrain to respond quickly to some of these crises? Yeah, if you are going to go by road, you are road bound. The roads are bad. They see you coming. Now, do we have helicopters that we can actually deploy, or drones that can pick up and move up to give us flexibility and move us to counter all these people? Do we have eyes in the air when they move into these difficult terrains and live on the hills, when they see any movement coming, they detect and they are advantaged on what to hit. So these are some of the problems that we have that we have not been able to address. And unfortunately, our people are quite resilient, but it requires a little bit of organization to be able to do. That we have had those, like Benway, for instance, when the Civil War started, we had thief men going in to attack with bows and arrows. Today, these people are coming with the same AK-47 that were used during the Civil War. Where are the arrows? Where are the bows and arrows? You know, there are no more heroes. Heroism today is when you acquire money through unwholesome means and you move about, they hail you around as a hero. But that wasn't what heroism was all about. That you carry out extra acts of valor. You defend people, you dive in an act that you believe in, and you become a hero, a national hero. Today, heroes are the ones, those who are acclaimed heroes are the ones who flaunt ill-gotten wealth left, right, center. So is there any incentive for you as a citizen to be a hero and die for what? So I think we need to look at our warrior ethos again. We've had people who will defend their families, who will defend their communities at all costs. How do you expect, how can you imagine that a group of bandits or terrorists will enter a whole community and kill about 50, 60 people in that community, burn down their houses without one of them being killed or injured even by a stone using sling like David used against Goliath, or even an arrow being shot at him, or somebody hiding behind a door and gripping one and disarming him, or say, let's die with him, or even some going with machete wounds and the rest. Everything will just come and pick up our casualties. I think there's something wrong. We'll end up being carried and slaughtered like chickens. That is not what we are made of. I know it in this place, in the Plateau and Benway, and most places of Nigeria, we are men of honor, men who are heroes, men who defend, especially women and children, defend the elderly. Our young men are capable of fighting and moving. All we need is to make sure that we help them and bring up certain things and let them look at and reorientate their values to see that money is not everything, but to be a hero is what you do to save your people at a time during those trying periods. Right. It's quite painful. But I believe that going forward, government at the subnational, because every of these papers, like Kabiru mentioned, have been brought out at the national level, but they have not been cascaded down to the subnational and local level. I mean, seriously, it was so painful to see the mass grave that was dug yesterday in Basa local government, and human beings were being thrown into them like chicken that had died in a poultry farm without even body bags, let alone to talk of coffins. Where are the local government chairmen? Why is that chairman that he cannot provide even coffins of 20, 30,000? And why should it be mass grave in any place? Can't they have individual graves? These are the beginning of building what patriotic citizenship is all about. But when there is a lapse in the administration and those who are leading us, who are left on our own, people just say it was the citizens who are doing all those things. It's quite unfortunate and it's quite demeaning. Right. Where has our humanity gone to? I mean, we have a common humanity. It cannot be that we, somebody huge, you give somebody a state burial, then you now come and give these people this. I think they are the ones that deserve state burial. and there should have been some sort of mourning at either a state level or local government level or even at the national level.
All right.
These are the things that build up a country that is resilient.
Okay.
Because if we do not build up our community resilience, Cyril, I'm afraid one day we'll wake up to find out that we have no country, because we have people amongst us who collaborate with them. Because if you look at and see the terrain around this area, and they're attacking at night, they don't have night vision goggles. How do they navigate these terrains at night that the citizens who have been in that area cannot be able to counter them, even laying ambush, even with stones, even with bows and arrows, even with spears? But you cannot ambush. It's your own terrain. You know it better than them. So there is a problem that we need to now start addressing this situation beyond rhetoric and beyond talking about this thing every day.
Okay.
It's no more time for theory. It is time for the actual things to be done.
All right. Thank you so much, General. A number of issues you've raised, and I'm sure the other discussants will chip in their bit on those. But let's go over and link up with Professor Joy Ezilo, who's in the United States and who's had the privilege of listening to the earlier discussants. And, well, it's just like the General said, where's our sense of humanity? And it would seem as if this question that is asked over and over again is relevant here. What's the value of the life of a Nigerian? And how is it that Nigeria finds itself in this very difficult situation at this time? Prof.
Yeah, unarguably, nowhere is safe in Nigeria. And the issue of insecurity is highly disturbing. And I've listened to all the panelists and the tales of woes. I am currently also working on Sudan as one of the UN experts on the international independent fact-finding mission in the ongoing conflict in Sudan. And sometimes when I also hear narration from Nigeria and what I witness, I live in Nigeria, I just like, one is at war. We are not at war. And how come we have this heightened insecurity that has been going on for far too long? Obviously, it goes to the fundamentals and shapes our existence as a people of Nigeria. It questions our Nigerianness. It questions our humanity. It questions everything that any right-thinking person should be worried. And we wonder, when will this be over? Will it ever be over? But I'm an optimist. I believe it will be over. But if, only if, the underlying causes are tackled. And I tell you, our leaders know this. We have brilliant and even patriotic army people, Nigerians that are in the army. We have security personnel that have done all kinds of research. They have the information. I've had the opportunity to teach in NIPS, and I know this. And I know that we know and we have the answer. But there is lack of trust. There are other primordial considerations that even when people want to fight it, you see people pulling them back. At times, I really also pity and weep, even for the soldiers that have to be in the front line, far away from the decision makers, that have to pay the ultimate price, and the women and children that bears the impact of this. And we are lying every day to ourselves, and we have not honestly confronted the animal of the insecurity. We have not given our peculiarities. Is it not the same Nigerians that went to Ecomo, Sierra Leone, Liberia, do well in missions? How come that is becoming possible for our own military, highly rated, to fight this insurgency? I know some of the answers have come out, but then we must know that it's time that we have to really tell ourselves the truth and nothing but the truth. Because it requires that Nigeria must be restructured. We may not like the language, but it is a must if we have to move forward. And this restructuring doesn't mean Nigeria ceasing to exist or us ceasing to be one. No. We have to look at our federal structure. Is it one that is far removed from the people, where everything is controlled, where the division of power is such that the people and the government that is closest to the people and local government are incapacitated in taking action? And we need to look, even as a constitutional lawyer, as a professor of public international law, I've been around the world. You see other federal structures. You look at police, and I've been saying this forever. Even 20 years ago, I wrote a position paper to the police when I was the United Nations Special Rapporteur on trafficking in persons, especially women and children. I travel around the world. I wrote a paper to Nigerian security architecture. This is how to go about this. This is that there is no way you would take someone from, say, Anambra, and you put the person in Borno, and you expect the person to fight crime, and then to fight it wholeheartedly, and then will succeed. That policing is local, and that we must think of safety. But once you mention it, everybody like, oh no, they think Nigeria will cease to exist. We're not telling ourselves truth. We must deal with the big elephant in the room. Today is a common knowledge that both the security and the security architecture have been infiltrated. And this is also because of that Nigerian factor, that before we think the nation Nigeria, we think of our many subnationalities. We think of our ethnic group, and we don't care whoever is there, so long as they are in power, so long as they are represented, so long as they occupy police, so long as they are in immigration. And for far too long, our borders have been porous. And because sometimes when you look at the gruesome murder, kidnapping, you think, are these people Nigerians? Is there something that we have in common with these criminals? How come they are so brutal? Then also it sets you thinking of the possibility that these people are not really Nigerians, that they may have obviously some accomplices from Nigeria. But the brutal way that they deal with people will show you that certainly something is amiss. And we keep keeping our borders open. No, oh, they are our brothers. Oh, they are part of us. We must be honest to ourselves. Look at today, the impact on women and children are enormous. The food insecurity, Nigeria that used to feed itself. I will be in Enugu. I will enjoy all the all the things coming from the north. Today, ginger. We tried to buy 3,000 naira ginger I bought last week. I could count it barely. And this is just because, and this is for every other food out. And we are still romanticizing, theorizing the problem. It is in our best interest. It is in our best interest to think Nigerian first. But to think that Nigerian first also means that we have to also question that our Nigerianness and our commitment to this nation called Nigeria. Right. Because that's the first thing. So long as we have all of this disparate interest and all of this attachment from all over, and we feel they are better than some people, prefer even some of the people that are not Nigerians to people who are Nigerians. And we've allowed impunity to go on for far too long. How to look at the massacre? It's not justifiable. It is not. And we have to really tackle the problem, the underlying problems. We are refusing to deal with it. All right. And however you look at the superficial problem, and even if you bring all the technology, already corruption in the system will not even allow even that technology or, to get the best of people and then give them all they need, give them the resources to fight it. The system will not also allow that.
All right.
I recall in 2010 or 12, I was in a mission to UAE. And usually when I'm on a country mission for UN, a special rapporteur, I see all of the security architecture. And I was in Dubai. I saw, it's a very big, modern stadium of Abuja 2-3 times. And everybody with a computer in their present, manning computer. Every single street is secured. Even the gold market in Dubai is secured. Every single, in fact, as you are sitting in that gold market, they draw you. You're passing on the way with the car, they draw you. And I know when I wrote in 2012, during the first round of attacks and bombing in Abuja, I said, this is how to go. Abuja is still a small city within the capital. But Nigeria, I asked them even then, how much did it cost to get all of this technology architecture? I told them in Nigeria. And I know in my country, if it costs 10 million for UAE to do it, in Nigeria, if it costs $10 million, they will tell you $1 billion. So I don't know where our patriotism has gone.
So it's
the God of Mammon we worship, when it's going to stop.
So corruption plays a big role in all of this as well.
Generations to come, that we can begin to think Nigeria and put Nigeria and the interests of Nigeria first.
Thank you so much, Prof. Well, yes, thank you so very much, Prof. We'll return to you. And as you've put it, corruption also plays a big role in all of this. And maybe we'll devote a whole program to looking at how corruption destroys all the efforts made at stemming this insecurity in the country. But at this point, we'll take a message and we'll continue this discussion. Thanks for staying with us. Still NTA Tuesday Live, and tonight it's all about tackling the resurgence of criminality and the vulnerability of women. Let me turn to AVM Amadi, who's here in the studio. Nigerians were shocked when another security threat reared its head. I'm talking about the Lakurawa, another group who came in and have now constituted themselves into another group of terrorists. Now, we do know that a unified military operation was formed. So what's the status now regarding this and the Lakurawa?
Okay, thank you very much. If you study the history of how the Lakurawa came into Nigeria, they were invited by, people from Sokoto and Kebbi State to help them fight against banditry. And you know that when arms are in the hand of somebody who is not trained to use the arms, after some time he begins to use it even against the people who bought the weapons for him. So Lakurawa threat escalated to a point where it became such a major issue, and with support from what's happening in the Sahel region, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, where we are seeing an upsurge of insurgency and criminality, and it flows down to Nigeria, and then they also help to fuel the Lakurawa issue. What the Nigerian forces did in collaboration with other security agencies was that a special brigade was formed to deal with this Lakurawa issue. A special brigade was formed, and that brigade is very mobile, very active, and it's working in conjunction with the other agencies of security and even the government to handle the issue of Lakurawa. And I tell you, most of them have moved close into Benin and Niger republics, and most of the time they come from those areas to conduct their attacks on isolated communities and vulnerable communities in Nigeria. So what we're trying to do more is that to make sure our early warning system works better, we're able to respond in quicker and more fast methods so that we can counter the attacks against vulnerable communities and isolated people that are being attacked by the Lakurawa. So we know that, and I believe that the Lakurawa issue, we give it too much publicity. That's for me, that's my own opinion. We gave it too much publicity because we didn't need to start calling press conferences about Lakurawa and all that. And when that happened, it gave them, one oxygen they needed, which is publicity. But now we are now dealing with them as a special brigade set up to handle the issue of Lakrawa. And that brigade is doing very well, I can tell you. But the reports we get, the attacks of Lakrawa have really reduced. We have had commendations from the governor of Kebbi State and the governor of Sokoto State that the incident of Lakrawa is being dealt with in a very systematic and organized way to handle that issue.
All right. Well, I'm sorry, this other point that bothers many Nigerians. Yes, we've heard from some of our discussants here and all the time that perhaps we put too much effort into the kinetic aspect of dealing with this issue. We should engage more. And, well, you've also said that it has to be the entire country, the military, the civil society, and all of that. But one aspect that people still are skeptical about is when you do engage in what has been called de-radicalization. Sometimes you've arrested people, and we say they have been de-radicalized, and they're ready to be reintegrated into society. A lot of Nigerians worry about that. One, do you have the capacity to do that effectively? And I know that highly advanced countries are very careful with this issue of de-radicalization and quickly reintegrating people who have otherwise taken up arms against the state. And we as starters here, you think we have that capacity to do it, and you can safely go back and say, these people have changed for the better?
Yes, I think it's a chicken and egg situation. You cannot make omelets without breaking eggs. And because when you look at the peace process, basically you talk about Boko Haram, their ideology, and the nature of the conflict. Not many people also realize that through the process of conscription, there were citizens who were not willing combatants in those conflicts. They were basically, taken into those conflicts, at gunpoint or, coerced into joining. And so those categories of citizens also feel aggrieved. And at some point, when de-radicalization programs take place, those categories of citizens actually believe that the conflict or the insurgency was really unjust to them. And so there is this whole thing of the government has a responsibility to give us, what it takes to get back into society and be decent human beings. That's one angle of the argument. But the other angle of the argument, the opponents of programs like that, of course, there is also that gap of information. And the fact that the role civil society will play in terms of the peace building that comes after all of those issues have happened has been very, very limited. Civil society are grappling with resource issues. For example, a lot of the funding that goes into all of those peace building programs, all of those programs whereby you bring communities together, sit people down to dialogue, and even do what is called transitional justice. All of those resources come from outside of the country. So if there is a lot more proactive engagement of civil society, of communities, and I think a lot has been said about community resilience. A lot has been said about the fact that we need to build that information structure within communities to help people to realize that in post-conflict phases, you still need to bring people, put them through programs, put them through training so that they can reintegrate back into society. There are a lot of people who have misgivings about that. In fact, in some parts of the country, people say, oh, you have taken terrorists and you are saying they are repentant, and you're pushing them back into the system. But it's just because we do not have that sufficient information going around that this is part of the peace-building process.
Right, but on the other side of it, for those who were victims of the activities of these now rehabilitated terrorists, what do they get out? I mean, I've spoken to people who have said they sit back on television and they watch the people who carried out mayhem against them and their families being reintegrated, being set up. And for them, the victims, nothing.
Yeah, that's absolutely a valid point. And that is where the accountability component of some of these programs come in. We know from the data that the federal government a number of times has also done its bit in terms of prosecution of many of those who have been indicted, and they belong to terrorist group, they carried out crimes and all of that. So there has been, and the whole process of transitional justice, which is a very big concept in civil society, is about how you can build and enable a justice system within the community, whereby the communities know that the people who have committed crimes have been made to atone for those crimes, and not just atone for those crimes. There are mechanisms in place also for the compensation or for some form of restitution for the victims of those crimes. So on the whole, there is the whole concept of accountability. And that whole concept of accountability also goes back, for me, to a comprehensive understanding of the reality of this situation. And the reality of the situation is also acknowledging the fact that we should not be programmed, to the tyranny of data. Dr. Kabir was talking earlier on about what the data says and all of that. My state, Edo State, where many farmers, Edo North particularly, and you also saw what happened with the extrajudicial killing that happened in Uromi, where 16 people were killed because of the grievance of the communities, saying that the security architecture government was not doing anything about it, and they were now, having extrajudicial jungle justice and things like that. So, in looking at it holistically, there has to be a mechanism whereby people see that there is accountability, where perpetrators are held to account, and of course, if there is now a pathway for a de-radicalization program to take place, people will now have that belief that this is not just being used to settle people who have turned against society.
All right. Ejaramatu, there are many dimensions to all of this, and even as you seek for solutions to the problem, again, you find that the terrorists, the criminals, find it very easy to recruit new, to recruit young people to, be part of this criminality. And again, it speaks to how people are raised, how young people, children are raised at homes where there's little or nothing. And you earlier spoke of a high rate of unemployment. And so you have a willing army out there of very young people who need just a little bit of convincing, and sometimes monetary, and sometimes not even monetary, just, brainwashing. And they're up to. What does this speak to how society now views raising of children? I mean, you were president of the NCWS, and what role for the home where we begin to shape the lives of future citizens?
Thank you very much. Let me make a comment. It might look rude or somehow to people. We used to have decent and credible youth, but they are now wearing oversized shoes. The youth want to look like governors, senators, and so on. They cannot just manage what parents are able to provide for them. They've gone to put their hands into bad things. Before any youth that sees within the community a stranger, he will run to the community head, and the community head will go and inform the royal father. So we don't know what is happening really now, that there is disconnect between the youth, the community leaders, and the royal fathers. Is it possible for strangers to be within the community without the father of the land knowing? as we have to tell ourselves the truth. Lack of employment is another thing. When a child finishes education, school, and is not employed, the parents, he has to still come back to eat from the pots of the parents. Now, the parents are retired. They don't have that means to take care of the children. Don't you think they will face frustration? Of course. Those that are now orphaned, their mothers are now widows. There have not been any counseling or for the trauma situation to be taken care of. Just ignore them like that. At times when things are reported, people are shut up. And that's why some women suffer a lot. The mother will say, keep quiet. You are not supposed to talk over, especially rape cases. You should not talk over it because you will tarnish the name of our family. This type of thing, mothers need to be more, fearless. They should gather the courage always to face the realities of life. Now at home, you see a child come home with something that parents have not provided, and the mother will, like Hansen, she will say, Ramato, please, now that you've gotten a new one, give me the old one. She will not ask the child, where did you get this? Who gave it to you? So there, on our own part, there is laxity too, and loss for material things, economic, whatever. Poverty, can we call that poverty? We have lost our credibility. I would say so, because our parents were not rich and they didn't go through the Western education, but they monitored us strictly. So we understand the situation that there's no one person that can be held responsible. Okay. We are all responsible for this menace we find ourselves in.
All right, just to mention at this point that the lines are working and you may wish to call in to contribute to the discussion. As we usually say, when you call it in, please keep it straight to the point and short and not worry too much about the greetings. And we also encourage you to turn down the volume of your TV set if you call it in tonight and your call gets through. So you may wish to take advantage of those numbers that will be on your screen to call in and be part of this discussion. Even as we go over to Dr. Kabir Adamu, surely there are socioeconomic factors here which bear on this whole system of insecurity. Okay, maybe just before you get on that, let's take the first call. Aliu, who's calling in from Abuja. Aliu, calling in from Abuja, hello. Hello, Aliu, are you there?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, go right ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening, Aliu, go on.
Hello. Yeah, I'm there, good evening.
Right, go on.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for giving me the time to speak. I've been trying the line for long. Actually, issue of insecurity in Nigeria is being politicized. Because if you look at Boko Haram started more than a decade now in this country. And everybody knows, everybody seated there knows who are the sponsors of Boko Haram. So many times, France nationals have been caught in the action there and nobody has taken any action against them. Everybody knows. If we are truthful to ourselves, we should talk to ourselves, tell ourselves the truth, that everybody knows the root cause of all this insecurity in Nigeria. Because God has given us abundant natural resources in the southeast. In the northeast. That is the genesis of Boko Haram there. And if you look at the Lakurawa, you people are discussing, the Lakurawas have been all along there. And because they have just discovered there is oil in Kebi and some other part of Sokoto, and look at Zamfara. Zamfara too, because of the gold that God has given them. That is why there is no peace in Zamfara. Everybody knows the root cause of all these things. And you cannot tell me that the Nigerian military cannot be able to trace these people and deal with them ruthlessly. We know where they are. We know where they are. We know where these criminals are hiding. But why can't we go directly and deal with all of them and crush them? I was once in the military. I know the militaries of today are all politicized. They are politicians in uniform. Thank God my parade commander then, he was a major, Major Temler, he was a major, 1988, 1987, 88. He knows everything. Those are the days when military are military, not today. The militaries nowadays have been politicized. Completely, they are politicians in uniform. Because if you look at during the time of...
all right.
what do they call this problem that emanated in the same south, in the northeast?
Aliyu, while I understand, we understand your feelings about all of this, but probably would have to go easy on the generalization. That's also worrisome because, as you say, everyone seated on this table knows. I don't know, for instance, and well, I don't know if AVM Nadia Abadi knows, but I don't know. So we have to go a little bit easy on the generalization. But perhaps you'd like to make a comment or two about the last caller, right?
Well, it's easy to point fingers at the military because, like we've all said here on this panel, the easiest component to look at and point fingers is the military because we are the most visible part of the counterinsurgency efforts. But like we've all said, these counterinsurgency efforts requires whole of society approach. And the military cannot do it all alone. It's very obvious. If you say we are all political, so you should go home and go and sit down at home, do nothing, no. We must keep doing what we are doing and keep giving our best effort at all times. If all of society begins to, it's easy now. He has accused the military quickly. Military, yes. But then, what of other aspects of society that needs to support the military to ensure that we deal with these issues we are facing? We interface with so many other agencies that it's not our duties. We go to the justice area to tell them, please, try these guys that we have arrested and convict them as a form of deterrence. It's not our duty to do that, but we do all that just to ensure that our efforts are yielding fruits and yielding results at all times. So I'm sorry, I'm not a political officer. I'm a professional military officer, fully trained and trained by Nigeria, and I'm proud to say that any day, anytime. Thank you very much.
Right. Okay, well, Dr. Kabir Adamu, we're just coming to you and the question of the socioeconomic factors. And, of course, you've heard about that. And people have also talked about the failure of governance, creating gaps where criminals and terrorists find it easy. I mean, the vacuum is there, they just come in and they fill it, and that's also part of the problem. And
definitely. And there's actually a very interesting book which I acquired and gave to some of the managers of our public security space. It's called How Terrorism Ends. In that book, the author made a point which I would like to mention here. So he categorized in an eco-space where terrorism exists, that there are three subcategories: the government, the terrorist, and then the citizens. And what the two extremes, the government and the bad guys, are doing is trying to exercise influence on the people. And if you are going to win the war, then you have to reduce their capacity to exercise influence on the citizens. And the point around socioeconomic conditions is what essentially allows them to exercise influence. In a situation where poverty is high, unemployment is extremely high, the several other socioeconomic indices are not favorable, then it's easy for these groups, terrorist groups, to now exercise influence. A good example, when this administration came in, and did two things: removed fuel subsidy, and then floated the naira. This economic circumstance in the country changed overwhelmingly. The purchasing power of the naira dropped significantly. Inflation increased. So many consequences of that. And of course, the effect was even more in the rural areas. So what happened then is the structural conditions that allowed criminality to thrive now increased, unfortunately. Companies, or especially small and medium-scale industries, folded up. International companies left the country. This is all on record. People were thrown out of jobs. So the effect of that was the labor market that had been, largely affected before then, suddenly increased. And so it was easy for criminal elements to recruit from that pool that was readily available. How were they doing it? Incentivization, with little money, actually. Even in the past, they needed more money to incentivize. Remember, there is an eco space where criminality thrives. That eco space, we can call it the shadow economy, essentially. That eco space can be incentivized with very little money. Using banditry as an example, they have motorbikes. They need fuel for that motorbikes. How many times have we seen our police and other law enforcement agencies arresting women who put petroleum inside cellophane bags taken to bandits? They are incentivizing them, probably paying them some small money. Last week, if I remember well, in Zamfara, one of the persons who is supplying them with drinks and under other condiments was also arrested. So that eco space, as long as the socioeconomic conditions remain unfavorable, it allows these bad guys to incentivize individuals within the eco space for different components. Kidnap for ransom. We've talked here about the informants who support that, industry, as it were, for kidnap for ransom. How are they doing it? They're incentivizing it. What makes it easy? The socioeconomic conditions. So it is absolutely critical. Last week I did a presentation to a group of law enforcement agents on the nexus between law enforcement, crime, and opportunity. Now, of all the efforts we're making, if we do not address the socioeconomic conditions, it may come to nothing. So we need to take this component of socioeconomic conditions seriously and start addressing them. And how do we do that? In all the three instruments I talked about, that socioeconomic issue comes up. And General Tellon made that point, that those instruments would need to be taken by the federal government down to the state government, no matter what the federal government does. If the state governments don't buy into those instruments, because most of the people in the country, as it were, live at the subnational level. So if poverty level is high, it's likely higher in the states. And because the data speaks to certain regions of the country, especially the north, I think the onus is actually on governors from the northern part of the country to quickly embrace those instruments and start addressing those socioeconomic conditions.
Right. So we have another caller. Umar Mohammed is calling in from Niger. Hello, Umar. Umar Mohammed from Niger. Well, hello? Okay, go right ahead if you're there.
Hello?
Yes, Umar. Let's hear you.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Well, Umar, you probably have to call back. We've got so much to pack in this period. Let's go over to General Temlong once again in Jos. And the trend now is combined efforts, as has been agreed, to deal with this issue. But then there are other aspects where people do feel aggrieved, and sometimes people turn to criminal elements to help them vent their spleen when they find that they can't get what they need from the state.
To help them vent their spleen when they find that they can't get what they need from the state. To help them vent their spleen.
Thank you, Cyril. That's very unfortunate what goes on in this country, especially. You see, we have built a country that has no men of honor, from even those in position of authority right down. I think that addresses the point that Professor was talking about. It's not the corruption, but if you have men of honor, corruption will fizzle off. We have a country where there are no men and women of honor. Today, whatever justifies the means, the ends that justifies the means. Whether you use criminal elements, like if you see even I've said it over and over here on this platform here, that if you look at the kidnappers and the amount of ransom they collect, hundreds of billions, the multi-billion naira industry, and look at how wretched those foot soldiers are. Where do they keep those billions? It means the criminal elements are being used by some people way back where we are. And they flaunt this ill-gotten wealth without any shame. It's only here that you see somebody coming out from prison for corruption or for being this thing, and he's being held, a party being thrown for him. It's never done. When we were growing up, the moment that they say either your father was accused of stealing or anything, the whole of your family, you are covered with shame. In fact, you are even afraid to go out because your colleagues will mock at you. Oh, this is dress you are wearing is a product of theft. Today, people flaunt ill-gotten wealth, so there's no honor. And once there's no honor, corruption thrives. So all sort of criminality thrives because of this lack of honor. People that you think are those you respect so much, they are behind some of those criminalities. So you see, when people resort to these sort of things, because it pays, crime pays, they pay their way through the criminal justice system, which is very weak. They are the most influential people in the society. They tell you that they will do something to you and nothing happens to them, and it stands. And so why is that honor? Unless we start again from that, because I tell you, when we were young officers, Cyril, paymasters will go to the central bank and they'll give them 2 boxes. If you are supposed to pay your battalion 700,000 naira, that used to be a lot of money. They will give you 2 boxes, 500, that's 1 million. Go and pay and balance the money. Though nobody will go and count 300,000 off and give you 700,000. No, they will give you 2 sealed boxes as an officer. You go and pay your battalion and you retire 300,000 back to the central bank, and they pick it there. We had a situation where you go into a shop as an officer, you finish buying, you go to Kingsway and you forget your check and the rest. The cashier will say, "I'll send you a check later." Men of honor. We had honor. And so all these things that are happening in this country is because it's lack of honor. And once there is no honor, integrity will collapse. Everything will collapse.
All right.
And so corruption will not start striving. So all these things that you are seeing, people resorting to using criminal elements, criminal groups, and the rest to achieve their aim is because there is no honor. Because when you are caught, nothing happens. In fact, your honor remains intact. Nobody even cares whether you are using kidnappers to make your billions, or you are using terrorists, or you are supplying arms to terrorists, or you are supplying this. You see people even posing for cameras when they take them to court on accounts of criminal cases of stealing and embezzlement. They pose in the courtrooms because they know nothing happens to them. But once you start having the reorientation and believing that honor pays, that whatever it is, you will not sell your name and the honor that you have because of pecuniary gains, then you start having a country where all these things, go and bring the best of constitutions that you have. When men that do not have honor operate those things, you are wasting your time.
All right.
Go and restructure. And when you have men that do not have honor, they will still cut corners and nothing will work.
Okay.
In fact, the whole thing is that people now don't want an organized system because an organized system prevents them from doing what they want. So they want an informal economy. They want to run government informally. They want to run government on avoidance. They want to run everything informally, so that once it's formal, the system will catch up with you.
Okay, John. Let's turn to the phones again at this point, and we have Stella calling from Abuja here. Stella, go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'm happy for this program that's going on. And I believe one of the problems we have right now in the country is problem of lack of freedom of speech. For someone like me to talk sincerely in this program, I hope I am safe after what I will say. And I hope the participants of this program will also be safe after the candid contribution they are making. What I actually want to say is that our leadership has been adulterated, both in civil service, in the military, in the police. Some filthy or some undesirable elements have been and initiated into Nigeria entirely. When a criminal have to be pardoned, and then the criminals who have killed Nigerians were pardoned and they were employed and put into the leadership system. Some even take up we all know this, some even take up the names of Nigerians and claim our origin. And they were all given managerial positions, placed in positions of honor. It is a great problem. We all know this, that this is a major problem. If we have a true Nigerian leadership or government, the sanitization should begin. There is an adequate record when they came in, where they are serving, whom they are, whatever information they claim when they come in. A true government should be able to.
Yes, Stella, are you still there? Oh, well, I think the better part of it, at least, was that we were able to get the line of your thoughts. It's possible, as Stella said, that there's been an infiltration. People who are not truly Nigerians, I believe that's what you're saying, have found their way into positions of authority, and some who do not believe in the cause of the nation also find themselves holding positions of authority, and therefore things will go awry in this case. But let's go over to Professor Joy Ezilo, and this time I'd like you, Prof, to talk about the criminal justice system, and that has also been fingered as part of the issues where people are not punished. And for those who look at that and say, well, I can get away with this too.
Yeah. The purpose of the criminal justice system is also is deterrent. And then in every society, you have law and order. And when people breach, the law is breached, you expect a sanction will follow. We have a very weak and fragmented system, no doubt. There is a lot of problem that is bedeviling the system. We've seen some improvement, especially with adoption of certain laws, including the Criminal Justice Act and its equivalent in all the 36 states of the Federation. criminal justice law, criminal justice administration law. But the problem is in implementation. The whole gamut, even the administrators of the justice system, from the police to prosecutors, there is a problem every step of the way. Some people are detained forever for even flimsy reasons, and those who have committed crime will walk scot-free sometime. We've seen commercialization of even police services. A genuine case will come, and then you write them and you expect them to act, and they will tell you, no fuel, bring this money, and if you don't get this money, nothing will happen. I handle cases, thousands of cases of women and vulnerable poor people every day, and you see them, weeping, crying for justice, for cases deserving justice, and they're not getting it. And this really calls into question a number of, because in the justice ecosystem, it's not just about judges that we often just think about. There is a number of other actors that are involved, and each process matters. And the most important is report to police station closest to you. That's where it all starts. And effectiveness in police response to prevent a crime, to take up a criminal, to ensure they are brought before the law. If you don't have that system that function optimally and expected without inducement, and you find extortion and people even people who are not supposed to be jailed, someone say, I'll punish you, I'll make sure you languish, and they pay and they punish you. Some people will act on it. So a lot of things have gone wrong. And that's why we need, it's not just about reorientation, because it's a number of things now, causation. The poverty now has become justification for people to say they are battling for livelihood. And truly, when you look at some of their take-home pay and how they have to deal with their own family issues. I handle cases of police people and their families, and even the wives, the widows that die, and people come and they are thrown out of overnight, and they have nothing to fall back on, and they fall into extreme poverty. Really, they live in the margin of society despite the very sensitive work they do. And we will take home pay and help you to solve your basic necessities. And those are the things that we need to look at: the poverty that drives crime, the huge unemployment that we have in the system, the fact that people have gone into the type of petty crimes that before you wouldn't think people would do. People carry people's gates these days. If your gate is not well fit, because they want to go and get better. People do all kinds of, they take your solar. As you're battling yourself to mitigate your own cost of electricity in a solar, somebody will come and steal it. So the kind of things going on is something that we need real value clarification, value reorientation. Everyone should be concerned, not government alone that we should leave it up to, but government must show leadership, because ultimately protection of life and property depends on them. So what do you tell people when they find justice? There is huge unmet justice needs. And every day you see people just handing over everything to God, because they feel that within the system, they can never get justice. So it's really sad. And we have we have a lot of work to do. It's not easy. You need to just look at the multi-dimensional problem confronting the nation.
All right.
And I believe that we can get past it if we begin to really show a lot of sincerity.
All right. Well, At this point, we'll also take another message, and then this conversation will continue. Right. Thanks for staying with us. It's still about the resurgence of crime and criminality. AVM Amadi, there are just some two specific issues which have been sent in here for clarification. That has to do with a reported attack on facilities along Ndambua. If this is true, with the claims that some arms and ammunitions were carted away by terrorists.
Well, thank you again. Yes, we've had some attacks on troops locations in between Dambua and Bununyadi Road. We've had some attacks and lost some equipment, yes. But with the response from what we have also tried to do is that whenever we suffer an attack against troops location, we ensure that the next day or the same day, we go about, find these guys who conducted the attack and fix them properly to let them know that you cannot attack our locations and go scot-free. So we have tried to do that at all times. Equipment were lost in that location at Sabongeri, yes, some equipment were lost, and some were burnt. But the next day we went out for exploitation, and we conducted attacks against the insurgents. We need to do more in the areas of being on the offensive against them, because we know that once you're on the offensive, they also run away. The most difficult enemy to face is an enemy who has nothing to lose, which is what we have seen in this insurgency and banditry attacks. So it means we have to be courageous, be bold, and use all we have within our abilities to deal with these issues. We have seen a slight, I won't call it a resurgence, but renewed attacks, yes. We are dealing with those issues, and we know that we did a study some time back, and we observed that these attacks take a U and N shape. So they attack sometimes, they go down, they go up. So it means we have to be on the offensive, be ready defensively to repel any attack when it comes to us. And if you observe, whatever happens in crisis around the world also reflects in what happens in Nigeria. If you observe the drone attacks have been happening, they took it from somewhere and they brought it to Nigeria. They use these small drones, Phantom 4, DJ, these little drones, just get some IEDs and put on it and then use against troops. We are also developing, deploying anti-drone jammers mechanisms. These locations are not in town where there's electricity or something. They have to generate their own power and keep those things running all the time. So we are deploying these anti-drone systems against most of these attacks. We are employing technology in more advanced ways right now. An example is IED that happens IED attacks have spiked recently. And if you see the spiking IED attacks, the normal method we use is a scanner called Valon scanner to scan, which is quite slow and can be cumbersome. So we are talking to equipment manufacturers who have drones that can detect IEDs in the ground and detonate them appropriately. So we are working on all those things to ensure that the troop must be safe first before he can even conduct offensive operation, even safeguard somebody's life. So we are working in those areas. Even those losses we've suffered, yes, as painful as they are, it doesn't stop us from doing what we need to do, and we will keep pushing, and in no time we should have a great difference in what we're doing. Thank you.
The second aspect, I'd wait until we take this call from Zachary Aliu, who's calling in from Gombe. Yes, Zachary, are you there?
Hello, sir.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Hello, sir.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm hearing you, sir. I want to say that, yes, I want to say that poverty and then lack of good governance is the main cause of all these problems that we're having in Nigeria. For example, local governments have long been in Nigeria without autonomy. No autonomy. And this thing has stayed longer, that has brought a lot of poverty to our localities and locals. From 1976 to 1977, when there's integrity in government, you discover that all local governments are autonomous. They have their own financial autonomy. They were well elected. But now governors in Nigeria are our main problem. Forget about poverty and corruption. Governors, they have now become alpha and omega in Nigeria. And the way they conduct themselves leaves much to be desired. Now, the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, have signed an autonomy decision to law. As of today, as I'm talking to you now, as of today, the government out of 36 states, over 30 states are still local government decision to ransom. And you know what are we saying? Eh? Governors have become distant for themselves.
Okay. All right, Zachary Aliyu. Okay, Zachary Aliyu, that's also part of the issues. One of the challenges, the breakdown in governance also leads to lawlessness, and it's all part of what we're discussing now. But back to the studio here, AVM Amadi, I did say there were two specific issues. The other one, the second one, has to do with the Maiduguri-Biu road, which is yet to be open to traffic.
Maiduguri-Biu.
Yes.
There's no direct route from Maiduguri to Biu. You have to go, either you go through Damaturu or you go through Damboa to link up Maiduguri to Biu. The Maiduguri-Damboa road is open. It's open. Right. It's running. The Maiduguri-Damaturu is also running. The area we're having some issues is Buniyadi up to Damboa, that goes to Biu, that goes to Damboa. That's why we're having some issues. And that's why we have the resurgence of attacks against locations in that area. They've tried to blow up Azi Bridge, which is one of the bridges that links Buniyadi access to Damboa. They've tried to blow up that bridge. Unfortunately, it was not successful. We were able to stop the attack. And the Nigerian Army engineers also has reinforced the bridge strongly, not to be able to suffer, not to be able to be destroyed during ID attacks. But road picketing is not just to keep the road open. We keep the road open, they lay IDs, and civilians encounter IDs on those roads. So we have to be careful. We take it step by step, clear the shoulders of the road, make sure the road is clear, and then continue to do a lot of ID scanning on the road to keep the road free from IEDs and attacks. One thing we usually do, that troops really do, with conjunction with other civil society actors, is to clear the shoulders of the road. That means clear the road so that the shoulders of the roads are cleared, and then you'll be able to see anybody who is planning an ambush or something on the road. But the Maiduguri-Biu to Damboa road is being worked on, and I'm sure very soon. The same thing, we had the same issue on Maiduguri-Damboa road. It took us some time, but that road is free now, running, even though there was an ID attack on the road that killed some civilians some days ago. But be that as it may, we keep trying to, giving our best effort to ensure that road networks are free. I'll give you a perfect example of the effort has made in such area, not in Kaduna Abuja road. It was really bad one time, really, really bad. But recently, you see that, I can send my family to travel on the road now without any fear, without any escort, because I know that the road is fairly safe. Okay. So we'll keep walking, and get there very soon.
Right. Well, we only have a few more minutes to go, so winding down now, and closing comments is what we'll take at this point in time. Let's start with Ansri Ajanaku, just as we wind down quickly.
Yes, thank you so much. One of the fundamental issues that has arisen from all of these challenges with security is the role of communities and the call to action. There has been a call to action, I recall, at a program that was attended by the Chief of Defense Staff, and then the DSS Director General said communities need to take up a lot more responsibilities. You do not sit back and allow your land to be overrun. You have a role to play. And he even moved up to the point of suggesting some level of armament at the level of community. But of course, there are many communities who are willing to key into that line of thinking, and of course, there will be some reform that needs to be done to make that happen. One of the recommendations we are making at the level of civil society is that there should be a timeline for some of those reforms to, come into place, and then let communities now actually become the first responders that they can be, especially knowing that our security personnel, they are, thinly, spread across the country. So those reforms need to happen as quickly as possible for us to have a headway.
Thank you so much. And Rahmat Musa El-Hatuf, just
Thank you, sir. I think the time for lamentation is over now. We are tired. We want results on the table. It will be very good if all of us rebrand our hearts, because charity begins at home. If we don't change our ways of life, if we don't become, patriotic Nigerians as individuals, then things will continue to fall apart. Because I would also say we need to call on government institutions, community-based organizations, non-governmental organizations, faith-based organizations, especially those of women, to look inwards. We don't need to be depending on international communities. We are very rich in this country. There's so many things that can be done. And government, I don't know why NIPS will year in, year out be producing reports, and government will receive for many years now. Had it been there following those reports, we would have, curtailed all these things happening. And also the former national conferences, they are picking 1, 2, 3, but they will not adopt the document per se. Thank you so much.
Well, Dr. Kabir Adamu, quickly, just round off your closing thoughts.
Okay, we've talked extensively, but one area that I would urge that perhaps to round off is the role of the Parliament, the National Assembly. Because we're in a democratic setting, the oversight function that institution should play, I would urge strongly that institution, exercises that oversight function. It passes the budget. It knows the money that is in that budget. It knows what was promised with the money that was passed. And so it needs to ask that critical question. We're not seeing enough of that rule now. So I'm hoping that going forward, we'll see more of that by the National Assembly.
Right. Thank you so much. Well, General Temlong, just as we round off, your closing comments in a minute.
General Temlong. Yes, thank you very much, Cyril. What I want to leave as my parting shot is that we must build the resilience of our communities. We must be able to build that capacity to be able to at least do the nitty-gritty that we need to do. No matter what you want to introduce at that level now, and they are not able to do it, it will not work. We have a lot of retired armed forces and security personnel that are available in all the communities. they can be used to organize and build the resilience of these communities. That way, we'll be able to start having a country and a society that will be able to withstand and stand its own, and not these people coming here to clear them every time.
All right.
I want to sincerely thank you for this opportunity and to thank Aliu for the compliments. I want to assure him that the present generation of officers are working very hard in very difficult situations. Be rest assured they will succeed.
All right. Thank you so much, General Temlong, joining us from Jos. Thank you. We appreciate your contributions. And Professor Joy Zilu.
Thank you so much. We must also think of the impact, severe impact on women and vulnerable groups of the insecurity in the country. The abduction, the kidnapping, it exacerbates early and forced marriage, rape, sexual exploitation. Women farmers, women that are charged with providing food security are the ones who are raped, traumatized, become widows, feminized poverty, the poorest of the poor, children affected, drop out of school. We must think and protect them, have safety net, but importantly, continue to strengthen our law enforcement, continue to use and deploy new technologies, continue to hold people to accountability. Transparency, integrity is very key, but above all, awareness and community engagement and involvement in ensuring safe communities. We must all get involved. Right. It is our country, right, and we have to ensure that it works for all of us.
Right. Thank you so very much, Professor Joy Zilu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Thanks, joining us via Zoom from the United States. Well, thank you so much. And well, this is about how far we can go on this program. I always say that no one program can tackle all the issues. But even as we discuss this here, the Minister of Defense today held an operational meeting with service chiefs, this to address the national security situation. And so that meeting took into consideration what's on ground, and it concentrated from the reports we get that the meeting dwelled a lot on how to boost current efforts to tackle the challenges. So there it is. We thank you all for being part of it. Thank you to those of you in the studio here. Air Vice Marshal Amadi, thank you so much for being here. Thank you. And thank you so much, Amsri Ajanaku. And again, it's good to see you once more.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Dr. Kabir Adam, it's always a delight to have you join these conversations. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Right. And that's our program. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Bye for now.